Oh, my friends, my viewers, prepare your hearts. The Sermon on the Mount has ended, but the drama is just beginning. The time has come to uncover not just the words, but the overwhelming power of the Master. Grab your tissues, grab your faith, because today's chapter is a journey of miracles, storms, and shocking revelations. If this beautiful story of revelation about the Gospel of Matthew has interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching from. Chapter 8. The touch of faith and the fury of nature. Those words spoken on the mountain. Be perfect, love your enemies, seek first the kingdom. They still echoed through the valleys of Galilee. And when Jesus came down from the mountain, a countless multitude followed him. They were drunk on hope. But the question in the air was, is he just a prophet of pretty words, or does he have the power to deliver on what he promises? The answer, my dears, did not take long, and it came in the form of the greatest taboo of that society. A leper, yes! A man whose skin was the very image of death, a man forbidden to come near, a man who was supposed to shout, "Unclean, unclean." He tears through the crowd. The people recoil in horror. The disciples, Peter, James, John, raise their hands to their faces, ready to rebuke him. But the leper doesn't stop. He doesn't see the crowd. He only sees Jesus. He falls to his knees, his face in the dust, and his voice cuts through the silence. "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." What audacity! What faith! He did not doubt Jesus' power, only his willingness. The entire world held its breath. The law of Moses was clear. To touch a leper was to become unclean, to be banished from the temple, to contaminate oneself. And what does Jesus do? He looks at that man with a compassion that disarms the law. And then the Master does the unthinkable. He extends his hand. The crowd's gasp is one of pure shock. He touches the leper. He places his divine hand on the rotting flesh, and he says with the firm voice of a king, "I am willing. Be clean." In that very instant, my friends, in that very instant, the dead skin comes to life. The wounds close. The leprosy disappeared. The man looks at his own hands, weeping. But Jesus, instead of celebrating, entrusts him with a secret, a suspense. See that you don't tell anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer the gift Moses commanded, as a testimony to them. The healing was instantaneous, but the social order still needed to be respected. What a contradiction! The drama had barely ended when he entered Capernaum, and as soon as Jesus steps into the city, another conflict presents itself. Not a Jewish outcast, but the opposite. A centurion, a Roman soldier, the oppressor, the enemy. He approaches Jesus not with arrogance, but with desperation. "Lord, my servant lies at home paralyzed and suffering terribly." Jesus, the Master who commanded them to love their enemies, doesn't hesitate. "I will go and heal him." But it's right there, my dears, that the first great plot twist of this chapter comes. The Roman soldier, the villain of the story, stops Jesus in the middle of the street. "Lord," says the centurion, "I am not worthy to have you come under my roof." Jesus stops. The crowd is confused. What was that soldier doing? And the centurion reveals a faith that would shake Israel. "But only say the word and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes. And that one, go, come, and he comes. And to my servant, do this, and he does it." What a revelation! That Roman understood everything. He understood that Jesus' word had the same authority as a general. He didn't need his presence, just the command. Jesus, my friends. Jesus was astonished. He turns to the crowd, to his own disciples who still doubted, and declares, "Truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith." And then he delivers the prophecy, the climax of that scene. "Many will come from the east and the west, like that Roman, and will take their places at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the sons of the kingdom, those who thought they were entitled, will be thrown into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." A shock. The foreigner's faith humiliated the arrogance of the chosen. And to the centurion Jesus said, "Go, let it be done just as you believed it would." And at that very hour the servant was healed. The day had barely begun. Jesus enters Peter's house. The tension there was different. Peter's mother-in-law was in bed, burning with fever. a family drama. Jesus doesn't preach a sermon. He doesn't call the crowd. In the silence of the room, he just approaches, touches her hand. And the fever left her, and the proof of the miracle? She who had been bedridden gets up and begins to serve them. Jesus' power wasn't for show. It was to restore life. When evening came, the news had spread. The entire city brought their sick, their demon-possessed. And he, with his word, drove out the spirits and healed all the sick. He was fulfilling the ancient prophecy of Isaiah. He took up our infirmities and bore our diseases. But fame, my friends, has a price. The crowd surrounded him, no longer for the word, but for the miracles. And Jesus, seeing the danger of empty worship, makes a drastic decision. Let's cross to the other side. He decides to flee his own fame. And in the chaos of the departure, two men confront him. The first, a scribe, a teacher of the law, an intellectual. He says with all his pomp, "A teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." It seemed like perfect loyalty, but Jesus looks deep into his soul and sees that he is seeking glory. And Jesus' answer is a bucket of cold water. Foxes have dens and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. You want to follow me. Prepare for discomfort. Prepare to be homeless. Immediately after, another disciple approaches, but with a just request. Lord, first let me go and bury my father. A sacred obligation. But Jesus gives him the most shocking, harshest command of his entire ministry. Follow me, and let the dead bury their own dead. What apparent cruelty, but what a revelation. Jesus was saying that the call of the kingdom of life was more urgent than the rituals of death. It was a radical choice. The boat finally departs. Jesus, exhausted from giving so much of himself, falls asleep in the stern. And it is here, my friends, that hell decides to rise up. It's not an ordinary storm. It's a storm, a seismos, an earthquake on the sea. That is supernatural. The sky turns black. The waves swamp the boat. Peter, Andrew, James, John, experienced fishermen, men who had lived their lives on that lake, are in a panic. They drop the oars, they scream. The boat is sinking. And Jesus? Jesus was sleeping. Their despair is total. They run to the sleeping master, they shake him, shouting, "Lord, save us. We are perishing." Jesus opens his eyes, but he doesn't look at the storm. He looks at them. And his voice is calm but full of disappointment. "Why are you afraid, you of little faith?" The first thing he does is not save the boat, but confront their doubt. Only then does he stand up. He looks at the chaos, at the howling wind, at the murderous waves, and he rebukes the winds and the sea. And in that very instant, there was a great calm. The silence was deafening. The disciples, still trembling, not from fear of the storm but from fear of him, looked at each other pale. The revelation was too much for them. But what kind of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him? They thought they knew him, but they knew nothing. They barely survived the fury of nature. And now on the other side, in the land of the Gadarenes, they come face to face with the fury of hell. Two men. No, they weren't men. They were shadows, possessed by demons, living in the tombs. They were so furious, so violent, that no one dared to pass that way. They were the beasts of the region. But when they see Jesus getting out of the boat, the demons inside them recognize him. Before Peter could even say, "Master," the demons scream, "What do we have to do with you, Jesus, Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time?" What irony. The demons knew exactly who he was, while the disciples in the boat were still asking. The demons knew they were defeated. And they beg, "If you drive us out, permit us to go into that herd of pigs." Nearby there was a herd of thousands of pigs grazing. And Jesus, with the power of one who commands heaven, earth, and hell, gives them a single order. One word, "Go!" And what follows is chaos. The spirits leave the men and enter the pigs. And the entire herd, all thousands of pigs driven mad, rushes down the steep bank straight into the sea and drowns. The two men, once beasts, were now calm, healed, free. The owners of the pigs, seeing this, run to the city and tell everything. They tell them about the pigs, and about what happened to the demon-possessed men. And here, my friends, here comes the final revelation, the most tragic and shocking climax of this entire chapter. The whole town comes out to meet Jesus. They see the two men healed, clothed in their right minds. They see the power of God made manifest. They should have been celebrating. They should have been on their knees giving thanks. But they weren't. They were furious. They had lost their business. They had lost their pigs. The entire crowd surrounds Jesus, and instead of asking him to stay, they begged him to leave their territory. They preferred the madness of the demons and the profit of the pigs over the holy presence of the Son of God. What a terrible twist. Jesus healed the leper, breaking the law for compassion. He healed the enemy's servant because of faith. He healed Peter's mother-in-law out of love. He confronted the storm because of the disciples' lack of faith. He drove out the demons by pure authority, and in the end, he is expelled by the people he came to save. The question that hangs in the air, echoing louder than the storm, is, whose side are you on? Are you like the leper who risks everything for a touch? Like the centurion who shocks the world with a faith Jesus had never seen? Like the disciples who walk with him but panic in the storm? Or like the town of Gadara, which sees the miracle but prefers its pigs and its comfort, its money, its routine, and asks Jesus to leave? If this saga of faith, power, and difficult choices has touched your heart, don't ask Jesus to leave your life. On the contrary, click the subscribe button and come be part of our congregation of the Master's followers. Ask for more revelations like this in the comments, and seek your knowledge by leaving your like so that this gospel may calm the storms in many lives. And tell us, in your storm, do you scream in fear or do you trust the sleeping Master? Your participation is the faith that moves our work until our next and electrifying chapter.